Hello, welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, live from Studio K, presented by our friends at Circle K, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. I'm Johnny Venerable. He is my co-host for today, the phenomenal producer / on-air out extraordinaire. It's Damon, Dawg, as Bull Brock getting some much-needed R&R ahead of training camp. Mr. Dawg, how we living?
Living good, Johnny. Just filling in Bo's shoes here, sitting on the throne that is, Bo's seat here on the show, and feels good to be on top.
It does, absolutely. We'd like to see the Arizona Cardinals get to a point where they're on top, but at this point right now, that remains to be seen. And who do they have to contend with in the NFC to get to that place? Say hi to everybody in the chat if we could. Bees, Jessica, Ozzy, Bo Biden. We got one Bo today. Brett Jones, Han Shop First. How about this? Han Shop First. I have a confession. I purchased my season tickets right after the Cardinals traded for Cobb. I'm guessing, is that Kevin Cobb? I thought he was going to be the QB savior for the Cardinals. Han, first of all, never a bad time to buy season tickets. I don't care who you are. And then I have made so many egregious purchases after this team has traded and or drafted QBs. I have a Leinart jersey. I have a Rosen jersey. I was all in on Kevin Cobb. There's no shame in that, my friend.
I think Matt Leinart is, pretty acceptable one. That one I feel like everyone would have bought in on after all the hype in college and everything. And Kevin Cobb, didn't the Cardinals start off like 3-0, 4-0 that year?
They were 4-0. I'll tell you a quick story off the top of the show. They were 4-0. They were one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Very flawed. I was living in Illinois at the time. My dad and I ran to a ticket provider that will not be named, not Game Time, because man, oh man, did we pay some fees. And we bought tickets on the 50-yard line on the opposing side, Cardinal side, to watch the Cardinals play the Rams at the Edward Jones Dome. Rams were not very good at the time. I kid you not. Anybody can go look this up. Kevin Cobb in that game was sacked like 9 times. He and he had concussion issues for the rest of his career, unfortunately. Kevin Cobb was never the same. I was at that game, and the Cardinals proceeded to go 5-12 that year. They started 4-0 and they finished 5-12. How about that?
Yeah, it's pretty atrocious. It's hard to get worse than that. That's a brutal end of the season there. Yeah. And you know what? We're not going to experience that this year, Johnny.
We are not. We are in for what we believe on this program. The fanboys of this podcast, pom-poms out. The Cardinals are going to be in playoff contention, and I believe they are going to punch their ticket to the big dance. But how are they going to get there? Who is standing in their way, Mr. Damon, Dawg? We talk a lot about the Cardinals, and we're going to talk about them a lot today. But let's look at the landscape, Damon, of the NFC, not just the NFC West, but the NFC specifically. Where can the Cardinals find a way to get to the postseason? These are with our friends. How about this logo? Bet365. Use the bonus code PHNX365 today. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. This graphic says it all. You look at the perennial division contenders, right? So just going division by division. Niners, Lions, Falcons, Eagles. Everybody feels pretty comfortable, Damon. All those teams are going to punch their ticket to the playoffs. Then you look at everybody else. I mean, like those odds for Carolina as compared to the Cardinals, that's egregiously bad. That is horrific. I love Bet365. Damon, what are they thinking here?
I think that's just got to be based off of what division that those two teams play in. The Cardinals play in a division that has, the Rams who are a Super Bowl champion within the last 3 years, the Niners who have been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years, I believe, and a Seahawks team that's not necessarily what you would consider, bad either. Pretty, I would say average team going into this season. So the NFC South is by far the weakest division in the NFC. Just looking at this, I would say you have 2 Super Bowl contenders in the West, probably 1 in the North, 2 in the East. And then I would say, I don't believe that anybody is a true Super Bowl contender there in the NFC South. So I just think it's a divisional thing, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, and these are division odds. We want to be clear. The Cardinals have better odds to make the playoffs as a wild card team than the Carolina Panthers. Like that's definitive. But here's what I will say. Let's remove the teams that are favored to win their division. Let's remove San Francisco, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Atlanta. And then let's remove the playoff teams from last year. Rams, Cowboys, Packers, Bucks, right? So there are about 7 to 8 teams that Vegas feels consistently like these teams are going to be in the mix. We both, I think, Damon, are you ready to go on the record? There's only going to be one playoff team from the NFC South. Can we say that confidently?
Yeah, I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement there. So if we look at, let's just assume the Cardinals don't win the division, and there are 3 wild card spots up for grabs here. They will have to contend with what I believe is to be 3 teams in the NFC North, in the Lions, the Packers, and the Chicago Bears, and 2 teams within the NFC East, Philadelphia, Dallas Cowboys, and then, of course, 3 teams in the NFC West, not including the Seattle Seahawks. So looking at the landscape of this, Damon, which non-division favorite or favorites pose the biggest threats for the Arizona Cardinals to make the playoffs as a wild card this year?
I think absolutely one of Dallas or Philadelphia, right? That would be the first one that comes to mind. I feel pretty confident that both of those teams will probably find their way into the playoffs. So I'd say, that's kind of a pick'em situation there. There's not much of an odds difference. So I'd go with either one of those teams, as well as probably the Green Bay Packers, the Rams in their own division. And then I think, the Bears are a team that you have to look at as well.
The Cardinals, and you hit the nail on the head, cannot be in a position to miss out on the postseason because of losses to the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. You have to win those games. I'm going to sit here and call those games must win, and I'm going to say your game at Lambeau Field is damn close to a must win because those are teams we would presume. Like I think Detroit just has so much talent. They've got all the cachet. They were a quarter away from the Super Bowl last year. We're going to give them the NFC North for another year. So it's like you're going to have to do the gauntlet with the NFC North while doing it also in your own division. Like, I think there's a possibility the Dallas Cowboys could miss the postseason this year. Zeke is 100 years old and 500 pounds at running back, respectfully. I don't love their defense now with no Dan Quinn. They've regressed everywhere, offensive line-wise. Dak's another year older. Like, if you looked up, Damon, and the Cowboys are like 7-10, that wouldn't surprise anybody, I think. Like, I feel like they reached their ceiling last year.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually absolutely a fair point that I wasn't really considering. I mean, on from a weapons standpoint, they have CeeDee Lamb and Turd Ferguson. And that's the people that they have to throw the ball to. I'm not counting Brandon Cooks anymore. I'm sorry. But, like you said, their O-line got significantly worse. They lost their defensive coordinator. I tend to think that their defense will still be one of the better defenses in football, just because their personnel is mostly similar. But their offense definitely on paper looks significantly worse. So Dak's going to have to, he had a good year last year, obviously, and he was an MVP favorite, for pretty far into the season, but you're going to need him to step up his game to another level to kind of counteract losing all those players.
People in the chat agree. Cowboys, according to Ozzy, winning 8 games. Shave saying Dallas misses the playoffs. A lot of people feel like the Cowboys, again, too much turnover on the coaching staff. Mike McCarthy, lame duck coach. Let's remove the Dallas Cowboys from the playoff equation. And again, like, I don't love Philadelphia either. Sirianni's a high school coach. I just think they have too much talent, right? You add Saquon to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Vic Fangio's there to help. Kellen Moore's competent. I think they're gonna find a way to get to 10 wins and win that division. So let's get that graphic up again. So let's say that the NFC East and the NFC South are both one playoff teams. Like, I think Tampa regresses. I think the Saints, somebody's getting fired there. Atlanta wins the division kind of by default. So then you're looking at, okay, we still have 3 wild card spots up for grabs, and we've got 8 teams and 2 division winners. I think San Francisco wins the division, the NFC West, and the Lions win the NFC North. So it really is going to come down to one of really 2 things. Number one, you have to beat Seattle. You have to take care of business against the Seahawks. That's a non-starter. Sweeping them is very much on the table with Kyler Murray at the fold and no Pete Carroll. And then you cannot let two rookies in JJ McCarthy and Caleb Williams beat you and Jonathan Gannon. Like if you're Jonathan Gannon this year, and I know everybody loves Chicago, their weapons, how they finished the year last year, and that's fine. I think we get a year of ups and downs from Caleb Williams, and he's going to be good long term. I don't think that team is quite prepared. We were ready to anoint them last year. They were horrendous to start. It's still Matt Eberflus at the end of the day. When we're looking at these odds in the NFC West, or excuse me, the NFC playoff picture, Damon, the Cardinals' biggest competition, I believe, are going to be the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, no, and I like what you said about the Seahawks too, because I think that those are the teams that you're going to have to take care of business against, like you said. Like, you're not going to necessarily go into like a Lions game expecting to beat them or a Niners game expecting to beat them, but you do have to handle business when it comes. You have to get minimum a split against the Seahawks, minimum. Yep. And you probably have to beat both of Chicago and Minnesota if you want to make a wild card. So yeah, I would say that those games definitely, jump off the page as in terms of importance. Absolutely. And the Packers as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody is scared of the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers got hot at the end of last year. I think they were a flawed team. And I think they have yet to put together, Damon, like a complete regular season where you're like, that's a juggernaut team. Like, they're a beatable team. But, I mean, they've got talent. They've got a really high-end head coach. JJ McCarthy, Caleb Williams, and Sam Darnold cannot beat you and Kyler Murray if you're Jonathan Gannon. You have the better quarterback matchup against the Seahawks, the Bears, and the Vikings. And if you want to say it's a coin flip with Jordan Love, I have no issue with that. You want to say Jordan Love's better at this point. He's off a hotter season last year. I have no issue with that. If we're talking about it's a coach quarterback league, give me Jonathan Gannon over Matt Eberflus. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
And give me Kyler Murray over the slappies at the bottom of the NFC North. Like, that's what it's going to come down to. And I would say the same thing. I'm not bringing up the Giants. I'm not bringing up the Commanders. Somebody in the chat said the Saints are going to be contending for the number 1 pick overall. I 100% agree with that. Carolina's a joke. I think Han Shot first said the Saints were going to contend for the first overall pick.
Yeah, he did.
So again, you have to take care of business, is cliche, with the teams on your schedule, because guess what? The teams that are contenders within the NFC are residing on your schedule in the middle and the back half of this year. And for the Cardinals, you're going to be able to say in January, nobody screwed us. If we didn't make it, there's nobody to blame but ourselves, because we're going to be able to point back to week 6 or week 10 or week 11. That game against the Chicago Bears at State Farm Stadium, what is that, week 9? That could be the biggest game in the regular season. As crazy as it sounds, you're right at the midpoint on November 3rd, and you're trying to get out of Hell's Gate there with the first 8 games of a gauntlet, 3 out of 4 on the road ahead of week 9. You have to win that Bears game. I'm labeling that Bears game right after we come back from South Beach, Damon, as a must-win for Kyler Murray and Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. And I like what you said about like kind of looking at the coach QB combo, because I mean, let's call it like it is. Like in the NFL, that's the name of the game. If you have a stud coach and a stud quarterback, you're going to have a really, really good football team for the most part. I mean, it hardly ever would happen where that's not the case. So, but when you look at what we believe Jonathan Gannon can do, what we think that, how he elevated a XFL roster last season, like we believe in Jonathan Gannon. The league might not yet, but we do. Kyler Murray, on the other hand, like I believe he's shown that he can be a very good quarterback in this league. Yeah. Even if he gets disrespected, like who cares? We've seen it with our eyes. Gannon, we're projecting a little bit more, I think, but we like what we see from him. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, you look at Gannon times Kyler Murray, and then you compare that to Kevin O'Connell times JJ McCarthy. Okay, well, they have a good coach, but the quarterback's not there. You compare it to Eberflus and Caleb Williams. Maybe Caleb Williams is insane. Maybe he's offensive rookie of the year, but Matt Eberflus, like I'm not buying into that. But I do think the Packers do have a shout there because LaFleur is a really good coach, really good coach. And Jordan Love showed last season that, he's, I think, his peak is at least similar to what Kyler Murray has shown as his peak. So that's going to be a team that I look at that, like, how are the Packers doing throughout the whole season? I'll be monitoring that because I do think that the Cardinals have the advantage over teams like the Bears and the Vikings. But the Packers, that's gonna be a different story, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like nobody expects the Cardinals to sweep the NFC North. Like, here's what you got to do. You got to find a way to play 500 football in your own division and in the NFC North, right? Can you go 2-2 and 3-3? And then you need to beat the shit out of Carolina. You need to beat the Patriots. You need to beat the Jets, right? You need to beat these teams that are, we laugh at every day on this podcast. You got to beat Cliff Kingsbury's Commanders. And then you're going to look up the end of the season and you're going to have 9 or 10 wins. Like, that's how it's going to happen. Like, you gotta steal a couple games you're not supposed to. We're going to look up at the end of a football Sunday and the Cardinals have just beaten the Rams in LA. Like those kind of instances, the Pittsburgh game last year, the Philly game last year, we need a couple of those. And then against the slum, let's pull that schedule back up again, Damon. Against the slum of the NFC and the AFC, you can't be dicking around. Like Carolina, week 16, New England, week 15, Bryce Young and Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, can't be losing to those players. I'm sorry, it's 2024. He's 35 years old. Can't be losing to Geno Smith anymore. I mean, Kyler Murray's making $50 million. He looks sensational. The team is stacked offensively. I don't want to see Kyler Murray lose to Geno Smith anymore. Can't happen. That's a non-starter. Can't be losing to Cliff Kingsbury in week 4. Can't be losing to one-legged Aaron Rodgers at State Farm Stadium who can't move, right? With a sieve of an offensive line. And you can't be dicking around against Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. That's the season. You go into those quarterback matchups with an advantage. You got to win those games.
I think you look at that back third of the schedule there, and that's where you make your money at this season because you got Vikings with a rookie quarterback, which you would hope that, a defensive-minded coach and a defensive coordinator in Nick Rawlis that's, considered to be kind of a prodigy, like they would be able to shut down a rookie quarterback, especially with film on him that deep into the season, or God forbid Sam Darnold is starting at that point, and then even more so. But then you have the Seahawks at home in week 14. I would say that, unless you beat them or in week 12, like that is a must-win game. Absolutely. And then you just got to take care of business against Patriots, Panthers, two of the worst teams in football, and hope that the Niners aren't playing for anything in week 18. Hope that they're resting guys, because you could stack wins on that back third of the schedule. Absolutely.
Like, it's conceivable. They're going to go, I mean, they may not be favored at Minnesota, at Seattle, but if they're playing well, they could be favored in 4 or 5 in a row there to end the year ahead of LA and San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
And again, we need to also we need to also live in the reality, like, at what point are the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers going to be not deemed unbeatable, like, for this team? Like, because
that's true.
I look at the Packers as an example last year. The Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions likely looked at the Packers without Aaron Rodgers and said, we're set. This is an easy dub. That team's a joke, right? Who are their players? And the Packers, to begin last year, were a joke. They had 2 wins in the first 6 weeks. Then they got hot. Then they had experience. That's right. Like this, the Cardinals need to have that same mojo of, they might lose to the Rams in the first month of the season. And then they need to be a completely different team by week 16 when they play them, week 17.
Yeah.
Like, you won't want to play Michael and Marv and Trey McBride in week 17 when this team has had, 3 months to gel and glue together. So it really is going to be dependent on who they play when. But we say it every show, Damon. Can they get through the first 8 games around 500? If they can, I firmly believe they're going to the postseason. The only thing that derails this postseason, of course, is Kyler Murray's health. And then you can't start 2-6. It'd be a disaster.
Yeah, and I actually, I don't think we've talked about the Rams enough either in this segment. Like I think you got to split with them too. You can't get swept by the Rams. That would probably
win the game in Arizona, you're saying?
Yeah, that would probably be pretty killer if the Rams beat you twice and like they're competing for a wild card as well. And you never know with them either. Like, Matt Stafford's not the healthiest guy in the world. We've seen that before. So it's possible that the Cardinals get a game without him or whatever. But I think the Rams are going to be really important. But I also wanted to touch on the Jets real quick, because I feel like you kind of skimmed over them, being like, you got to take care of business against them. The Jets, I think, are favored in all but like 2 games the entire year.
Joke. It's one of the biggest jokes in the NFL. We talk about this every show when we talk about rankings for, positional units. The Jets are the most overrated team in the NFL. Is there a more overrated team, Damon, in your mind?
No, absolutely not. But I just like, what's the spread here? I early spread.
Let me guess for that game. Jets at Cardinals right now. The Jets are probably favored by like +4.
2.5, I think I saw, or 3.
Okay.
Those are the 2 lines. So, I think that's going to be a massive game as well. And they're going to have a good defense. They're going to have a really good defense. I don't think their offense is necessarily going to be as good as everyone else does, but it'll be interesting because I think that the strength of this team is going to be the offense, right? So you're going to go strength on strength there, and we'll see how that plays out. The Cardinals offense, if they can have a good showing against one of the best defenses in the league, that would be, pretty impressive.
Let's get some of these super chats. We appreciate you guys. MP here to talk his Bears talk. Bear down, $1.99. Well, we appreciate that, MP. Good luck to you in week 9. Hope to see you in the chat leading up to that.
He saw Caleb Williams on the thumbnail, I think, and was like, I got to tune in today. They're talking Bears football.
Of course. It's a great game. It's one of the marquee games on the schedule. Illadre, $1.99. Niners have no depth. They're overrated. Initially I picked Illadre, the Rams, to win the division. And then I feel like I undersold the Darnold absence, but I'm with you. Like I do feel like if McCaffrey goes down or Trent Williams goes down, and it's just Purdy's got to lead that team. You're already missing a key defender defensively at linebacker after what's his name, blew out his elbow in the Super Bowl or tore his Achilles. And then they were already regressing as a unit anyway. They were using mid-season acquisitions to acquire like Chase Young. The Niners defense, I think, is not as formidable as it has been. No. And if they have some injuries up front, Illadre, you're exactly right. This Ayuk thing, though, as a Arizona statesman, and we're talking about an Arizona State statesman here in Brandon Ayuk, how is this going to play out in San Francisco with Ayuk, Damon?
I honestly, I don't really have any idea because it seems like to me, like if I was the Niners, if I was running the show, if I was John Lynch, I would give him pretty much whatever he asked for, and I would probably cut ties with Debo.
Yeah.
And maybe you could argue that the profile of Debo Samuels is a harder profile to find than a Brandon Ayuk. Like Brandon Ayuk's more of a pure receiver, and Debo doesn't really, those guys don't grow on trees, right. Guys that are 5'10", 220 pounds, look like running backs and play receiver. But I just think Ayuk I think that's a more, even with their like kind of gimmick offense that they play and how they use Debo, I just think it's, you want that pure receiver more because they don't have that piece if they lose Brandon Ayuk. So that's what I would do personally. But, and also I think the ESPN list that we've been talking about ranked Brandon Ayuk the 10th best receiver in the NFL, according to scouts or whatever the, NFL insiders or whatever that we've been talking about. So obviously the league values him pretty highly as well.
They would be morons to let him go, and I don't think they're going to let him go. B saying they drafted Purcell for a reason, and I'm with Damon. I think Debo is gone. I think in a perfect world for them, like they would play through this year with everybody, see enough from Ricky Purcell, and then deal away Debo Samuel. And like there was rumors. I was doing my day 2 mock draft. I kept mocking him to Carolina because there were rumors they were shopping both he and Ayuk. And I'm like, if we're going to shop one of the two, you're going to shop the older player that was a no-show, by the way, in the Super Bowl. And I also feel like Debo for them, I know he's means a lot from a physicality standpoint, a leadership standpoint. Peak Debo was before McCaffrey. And now that they have McCaffrey and they don't need Debo to run the ball as much, like Ayuk is a better pure route runner. Ricky Purcell, as much as he wasn't my cup of tea in the draft, excellent route runner, somebody that is refined. And Debo's like, he's more of a anomaly where you don't really know what's going to happen, but most of the time you get good results. But it's not a sure, efficient receiving kind of schematics that you want. Yeah. Whereas like Purcell and Ayuk are tremendous route runners. And I just feel like that's what they want. So I feel like Debo is gone next offseason. I think that's where this is headed.
Yeah, I think so too. But then if you're the Niners, like you can't lose Ayuk this year. Then
no, that's what I mean.
Then you're screwing yourself. So
What good does draft capital? I know other people made this point. This doesn't help the Niners. The Niners are gonna dig their heels in, or they're gonna sign them and they're gonna push the money out. Like when you have a 26-year-old receiver that you drafted, that's hit for you. You're not trading that play. He's not being traded. Like the people are like, yeah, they're gonna move him to Buffalo for the Cardinals week 1. That's not happening.
That would suck.
That would suck. That'd be terrible. But they're gonna have to this core of theirs is aging out, and I think that's the point of this entire rant is Trent Williams is 35. He's 35 years old. George Kittle's over 30 now, and then Debo is an old player in terms of the mileage on his body. Like this is going to, and McCaffrey's an older player. Like this is going to be an Ayuk Purdy team at some point with Ricky Pearsall mixed in. Like,
yeah, that's how I see it. Like, that's why I'm like, you can't lose the 26-year-old at the height of his powers that you drafted. That's not how you create winning rosters. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out, Damon. And again, check out these live odds right now for the division with our friends at Bet365. If you see a divisional line that strikes your fancy, you're ready to dabble, do it today. Do it with the bonus code PHNX 365 at sign up. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. They have live streams spanning across 780,000 events, NBA, NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, and more. Bet365, they pioneered live in-game betting, and now they're here to offer you some free bets in the process. Use that bonus code. Get an offer and place $5 after depositing $10 in your newly created account. $5 or more and get $150 in bonus bets. Then on the flip side, if you're not interested in that, instead, you know what? I want to go big, Johnny. You can bet up to $1,000. And if your qualifying bet loses, you're going to receive that refund in bonus bets. No questions asked on whatever sport you fancy. And they got a ton of them here. 78 different sports available right now, including our precious NFL at Bet365. You got to be physically located here in Arizona and 21 years and older. Use that bonus code 365. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov, Damon, for more information.
Yeah, and then when you get those winnings, why don't you hop on over at Game Time and find the cheapest tickets that you can find in show business, Johnny. You mentioned you used a different rival ticketing partner.
It shall not be named, but it rhymes with Schlub.
Contributed to the Cardinals' downfall that season. I would argue that if Game Time was around and you had used Game Time, things would have gone down a little bit differently. So you know what we got coming up here in the Valley that you could use Game Time for? That's a good option. WNBA All-Star Game. We got that coming up here. I believe this weekend. So make sure hit that up and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. It's the best ticketing app. It has the best interface. It's the easiest to use. They show you the fees up front. Game Time is just, it's my favorite ticketing app. I have it right here on my phone. I use it for pretty much everything. My parents, whenever I do anything with them, my dad just lets me handle it because he knows that I just want to use Game Time. That's how bad I want to use it. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Real quick, John, I wanted to ask you real quick about these odds one more time because I had a quick question for you. What do you think is the best bet on here, and what do you think is the worst bet on here?
The best bet on here.
I have an answer for worst. Easy.
I'm looking at bottom two teams in every division, right? So actually, you know what? The best bet on here is probably Rams plus 350. That's the best bet. You bet 100, you win 350. Like that, anybody could conceivably see Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford winning that division over Brock Purdy. Like, I don't want that to happen. I want the Rams to suck. But I think that's the easiest. Like every other second place team. I mean, Tampa maybe, but I'm not betting on Baker Mayfield again. Rams plus 50, and then the worst bet on here, like if you bet anything on the Giants right now, the Giants franchise is the laughingstock of the NFC, the only comparable to the Jets and the AFC. Giants are the worst bet on here easily. Burden money.
Yeah, I look at it a little bit more in like I guess like I'm not looking at just the bottom two teams. Like I think after we kind of talked about the Cowboys and how much talent they lost, like I'm looking a little bit at the Eagles, as much as I hate them and Big Dom and everything that they stand for. And the Lions are interesting to me as well, but easily the worst money for me on here is Saints. And Hanshot first said it earlier, but like in what world should the Saints be plus 350, 7-2 odds that they're going to win the division? I mean, that's unbelievable to me. I have no idea how people are coming up with that. Like Derek Carr's has like a shot at winning the division, really? In 2024?
I can't believe his numbers looked as good as they did last year. When you look back, every time I watched him, he was unwatchable. 25-8 touchdown interception ratio, 97 quarterback rating. Like that makes me think passer ratings are a joke, because every time I watched him, he looked old and slow. He constantly was throwing interceptions. The offense looked terrible. Mm-hmm. Like the Saints, to me, Dennis, like I think Dennis Allen could be fired before the end of this regular season. I think that's the coach. Like somebody's getting fired mid-year, it's Dennis Allen. And then I think we're talking about a complete teardown in New Orleans. I think they're going to have a fire sale, a very overdue fire sale, where they strip it down. They're picking top 3 in the draft. Everybody's gone and they're starting over.
Apparently I think they had like somehow a top 10 offense and defense last year, which is just like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's a byproduct of their division, man. It has to be.
Yeah.
You get to play Arthur Smith and whomever's the interim coach in Carolina twice a year. Congratulations. And then, Tampa wasn't a world beater last year. They barely won the division. I like Todd Bowles, but you played Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young, and Desmond Ridder 6 times. Congratulations. You get to be semi-competent. You play in the NFC West or the NFC East or some of these other divisions, you're playing some of the best players in the NFL. Like the NFC West, it just makes me sick. I hate it so much.
It is pretty sickening. With the South too, like what were the Falcons thinking? They easily could have won this division with an actual pick in the NFL draft. Like you sign a quarterback to a 3-year deal. What'd you say?
Who should they have picked, knowing what you know now?
I mean, like the rumor was always like one of Dallas Turner or Latu.
Yeah.
You don't think they could use like a premier pass rusher over a backup quarterback? Like it's so shocking to me that they decided we're going all in on this guy. We're going to pay him this much money, $40 million a year. He's our quarterback. We signed him for 3 years, mostly guaranteed. And then we're going to spend a top 10 pick on a 25-year-old rookie.
Terrible.
And like, it's just like, it's such ass backwards management of how to build a winning football team. It makes no sense. The Falcons, like, I feel like they easily are the favorite in that division, but they should be even more so.
I probably would have taken Rome just based on positional value and what the league thought of him.
Why
Rome,
not?
Drake London, and Bijan with Kirk Cousins. That's probably enough to get it done.
Dude, that's a really good core.
Yeah. But yeah, the Falcons, I mean, they lost to the Cardinals last year, and the Cardinals had significantly worse personnel at every damn position other than quarterback. Bijan almost beat the Cardinals by himself. So again, like if you put the best players together on the NFC South, I'm asking you this in all sincerity. Are they winning the NFC West? I don't think they are.
An all-star team?
If you took all the best players in the NFC South, quarterback, 53.
At every position?
Yeah, I guess just starting lineup, 22 players. Could they win the NFC West? I'm going to say no.
I mean, man, like if we're making an all-star team, I think that would be pretty tough to beat.
So Kirk Cousins would be their QB, right?
Yeah.
Or Baker, Kirk Cousins or Baker. That's where we're starting. Bijan at running back. Wide receivers would probably be Mike Evans and Drake London, maybe.
Yeah. Mike Evans, Drake London, Chris Olave.
Mr. Fat Gangster's like, you're kidding, right? I'm not kidding. Have you seen the Niners and the Rams and seen their coaches like this? We watch it every year. I don't know if the best players in the NFC South could win the NFC West. I'm going to say no on the surface. Kirk Cousins coming off an ACL and Baker Mayfield. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's a wild card team with some spunk.
I think it would be tough for any division to not win that, like in a hypothetical, to be honest. But it's hilarious that it's even like we're having a discussion about
Well,
it.
Ozzy's
Like,
putting in the chat, who's the head coach? Dennis Allen. Exactly. That's exact.
Todd Bowles.
Raheem Morris, failure. He's been a failure. Dennis Allen, failure. Can anybody name the
It's Todd
insurance
Bowles.
salesman that coaches the Carolina Panthers? I cannot. I don't know who that guy is. And then, yeah, it'd have to be Todd Bowles. I'm sorry. Respectfully, Todd Bowles.
But he's not like a phenomenal coach. Like, we've seen him with the Jets
He's solid.
He's
solid.
kind of like an average coach, you know. I'm not like inspired by him.
I'm at here, like, you want to do the NFC West? Could they win the AFC West? No, they could not win the AFC West. They would not beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I don't know. Mahomes is so good.
I feel like we're the only people who've discovered that question. The best collection of the NFC South, could it win every division? And I'm going to say no. Every other division could do that except for the NFC South.
That's so funny.
Sadly, the Cardinals don't play in the NFC South. All right. Let's get to the super chat. Ryan Carly, $2. Who steps up as the leader if we lose Budda next year? Great question and perfect transition, Ryan, into our position preview today. We're talking cornerbacks. And while I don't think it's going to be a cornerback, I think there are some names that we can look for in the future. But I think right now, defensive line is where you got to look toward. I'm looking at a guy like Darius Robinson after this year. I think Max Melton at cornerback. Jalen Thompson probably takes it in the interim because you're white if he's still around. But I mean, that's almost an impossible question to answer because the Cardinals desperately, Damon, need some of their young defenders to step up.
Yeah, I'd say Jalen Thompson, like you said, is the obvious answer. I think a lot of times you have a safety as kind of the leader of your defense. That's just kind of how football works a lot of the time. And he's going to be pretty much the most experienced player on the roster at that point on the defensive side of the ball. And also, a guy who's been in Arizona for a while. Like a Sean Murphy-Bunting is a really good player, and he's a veteran, but he's only been in Arizona for a couple months, whereas Jalen Thompson was drafted by this franchise. So yeah, I think, he would be the obvious answer for me. Like you said, Kazir White, I think, is a leader already on this defense, but we don't know if he's going to be here or not.
Right.
Moving forward. So, but I honestly, like, what about Darius Robinson? I think to me, that's like, I want to see that guy be the leader of at least the defensive line unit. And he seemed, when we talked to him at the Super Bowl and talked to him at media availability, he seems like an extremely mature guy who just loves football, and everybody has nothing but good things to say about. So I would look at him to kind of be one of the next, guys to step up in that role.
Isn't it funny? Like, we talked all day, all week, really, about the offense and the leadership there. Of course, it starts and ends with Kyler Murray, but you could say the same thing about, Paris is a leader, and Michael Wilson's a leader, and James Conner's a leader, right? And multiple offensive linemen. And it's not like the defense, these guys outside of the two safeties don't have leadership qualities. They haven't played enough good football in Arizona yet to kind of stake their claim. And I really do think the play has to come first. Like, B.J. Ojulari has 12 sacks this year. Guess what? He's a leader on this team. He's going to be somebody this team, these guys, rah-rah around, rally around. So, but I think it's going to be a front seven player, TBD on who that's going to be. But let's turn our attention to the back seven, the cornerback group, Damon. As we mentioned, it's changed a lot from last year. There it is in all its glory. Not one player over 27 years old. Say what you want. They got athleticism out the yin-yang, and it starts with the aforementioned Sean Murphy-Bunting coming over from originally a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, had a good year in Tennessee last year, and then comes to Arizona on a 3-year contract, 27 years old, the default CB1, which in a perfect world, he's probably your CB2, a high-end CB2. But what about CB1? Well, look no further, in my opinion, to the two mid-round, in this case, Max Melton and Garrett Williams selections you've made each of the last 2 years. Garrett Williams, third rounder out of Syracuse, missed some time last year, rehabbing a torn knee, came back, immediately had a pick in his first game against Seattle. And Max Melton, to me, has the highest upside of any corner on this list. Respectfully to Elijah Jones and Jaden Davis and the aforementioned Murphy-Bunting and Garrett Williams, number 16, when you think about he's the ideal Jonathan Gannon corner, a diamond in this draft, somebody we did not have on our radar, did not assume that they were in on. And then you turn the tape on and it's like, yeah, this guy fits Jonathan Gannon, Damon to a T. And if you need evidence, go turn on the game against Ohio State.
Yeah, I like what Fishbowl Flash says here in the comments. He says, this is far from the Marco Wilsons of the world.
That's right.
And it truly, like, looking at this list, when I made this, Johnny, like you didn't request me to put their ages on there. I solely was like, I thought about it and I was like, this group is so young.
It's a great point.
And I wanted to put it on there to just highlight what their ages are, because even Keitrell Clark and Garrett Williams, you know, are second year players. Starling Thomas he's a second year player as well, isn't he? So,
yeah.
I mean, other than Sean Murphy Bunting, everybody has been drafted within the last 2 seasons here. And yeah, I mean, you're right about Max Melton. He's absolutely the guy based off of the capital you used on him that you would, you know, want to take that cornerback 1 spot eventually and hope that, you know, he develops into that guy. And I think corners can come into the league right away and be pretty solid players. You know, like I don't think the learning curve is as huge at cornerback, you know?
Yeah.
Like you as long as you're athletic enough, and like we saw Sauce Gardner come in, and like, I'm not the biggest Sauce Gardner fan in the world, but he's absolutely one of, you know, the 2-3 best cornerbacks in football from the moment he stepped into the league. So,
yeah, and I think to your point, like, these guys are going to have success because Jonathan Gannon, and he's a DB kingmaker. We've talked about it, but their success, I also think, is going to be predicated on what the front 7 is able to do. Like, I think this is good enough, frankly. I know a lot of people, we were doing our mock last Friday, shield your eyes. It was horrendous via PFF mock draft simulator. We took a corner in the first round. I don't like doing that. And I can tell you what, I don't think the Cardinals like doing that either. I think the Cardinals, in my opinion, just brief time around Gannon and Austin Ford and studying their backgrounds, philosophically, how they want a team build. Every year or every couple of years, let's take a corner within the top 50 to 60 picks. Let's sign somebody like a Murphy Bunting, reasonable cost, and let's try to hit on a couple late day 2, day 3 picks. And then let's invest our premium resources, our first round picks, into defensive linemen that are going to blitz the shit out of the quarterback. Who does that? Who does that remind you of? San Francisco, right? The Rams outside of Jalen Ramsey, the one-off, like, that's how they operate as well. Like, in my opinion, and I've always lived by this, Damon, it's like the Cardinals for so long, they've hit on a lot of first-round corners. It's fun. Dominique Rodgers, Cromartie, Patrick Peterson. But the pass rush at the end of the day can elevate these guys exponentially. I don't think it's fair in today's NFL when you can't touch a receiver, when everybody's got 2-star wideouts, it seems, to ask a Max Melton, hey, go out there and cover him on an island. It's not the NFL anymore. So the Cardinals are going to say, okay, we got a bunch of guys who are athletic. Everybody in this draft class, they prioritize being able to take the football away. They all have tremendous ball skills, all the way down to Jaden Davis as a 7th rounder out of Miami. And then you think about, okay, we're going to give some yardage. But you know what? We're going to get home at the quarterback, and we're going to get some errant throws, and we're going to take the football away. So to me, it's like, I think this is a group that, like the offense, has a lot of staying power beyond this year.
Yeah, I absolutely love the fact that you look at your coaches and you kind of feel more comfortable with a certain position group, or 2 really, because the safeties and the corners, because of the specialty that they have. Like, it's such an advantage to have a coach that, like, automatically just improves a handful of players on your roster.
Yeah.
Or that just knows football well enough that they can kind of scout out and undervalued players and find guys that, like a Garrett Williams, who, you know, got hurt and, you know, probably would have been drafted a lot higher if he didn't, or a Keitrell Clark, who was, I believe, a 6th round pick, and who played pretty well in his first season until he kind of, you know, a little inexplicably, in my opinion, got benched. But like, I feel like you have a core of guys here that are young and that you can build off of. And it's not a huge need going into next season. So you're right. Maybe we did kind of screw up drafting a cornerback that high in the mock draft simulator, because
it was just good value at the end of the day. But like, Garrett Williams and Max Melton aren't going anywhere. And I don't think either of them are busting. They're going to be contributors one way or the other. Sean Murphy Bunting's making good money. They vetted him clearly. Yeah, like, you have a core group now. Now, do you have an alpha? Do you have a one? I don't know. But like, I feel better about this group than I do about edge rusher. It's the same thing we said about the defensive line the other day. It's like, I don't know if there's a superstar in this group. I don't know if there's a perennial Pro Bowler. But I look at that group right now. That's serviceable as hell. Yeah. I feel totally fine about that. And where the Cardinals were last year, as you mentioned, with Marco Wilson and company, night and day.
I think this is the group I'm by far the most excited to see on the defensive side of the football. Because I think from a safety standpoint, you kind of know what you got. You have Budda, you have Jalen Thompson. They're probably your two most solidified players. The D-line, it's going to be a massive upgrade, but I don't know that any of those guys are necessarily like huge ceiling type guys like a Justin Jones or a Bilal Powell. I think they're floor raisers. The edge rusher group, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Like I think there's some potential there, but I think that's definitely the weak point of the team right now. Like,
no doubt.
I'm assuming that that's going to be the weak point throughout the season. The corners, I think, have a chance to become a really, really solid unit. Yeah. Like I like a lot of these guys, but a lot of them are unproven as well because they're such young players. But I do think there's a ton of talent there, and it's going to be really fun to watch play out next season because, like, if Max Melton goes out there and is just a stud, or even like Elijah Jones, who was a 3rd-round pick, like they used pretty high capital on him. That's just gonna be like a cornerstone for this franchise for years to come.
They all have high floors, is how I look at it. Like Keitrell Clark and Starling Thomas started games for this team last year, and like I'm not gonna sit here and be ignorant and say, hey, they're not gonna start this year. But I think the Cardinals probably would prefer that they don't start. If they had to, fine. I think those are special team depth guys that certainly have a place. And you're gonna roll with the guys that have the promise, that have the top 50 grades in the NFL draft. We've got a top 50 grade. How about a 1st-round grade in our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union, the official credit union of the Arizona Cardinals? That's because for more than 84 years, Damon, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicated to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make lives better. Monty Ossenford, he's money in the draft. Desert Financial, they can help save you. They've got financial solutions tailored to helping real people like you and me achieve their financial goals and dreams. And it goes way beyond just a checking account. And they've got you covered there too, but they've got savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. And plus, best part about it, in my opinion, rep the Red Sea with the Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. Go and show your team spirit online. Open up a free checking account. It takes a matter of minutes. Get an Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card a couple days after the fact in the mail. Go to desertfinancial.com/Cardinals, Damon, to get started.
Yeah, or if you're a big ASU fan, they have a kind of sleek looking ASU card as well, as much as that hurts me to say. But yeah, talk about making smart financial decisions with Desert Financial, Johnny. How about making a smart financial decision with your sunglasses at Shady Rays, because they have the best protection in all of eyewear. Johnny, you lost your Shady Rays in the...
They're the new ones right here.
Oh, there they are. Those are sweet, man. Those are good. Those are good looking. Johnny lost his sunglasses in the North Pacific Ocean. They could be anywhere right now.
Yeah.
There's probably like some mermaid or something that has them on.
Looking stylish as hell under the water.
Oh, absolutely. But what did you do when you lost them, Johnny? You hit up Shady Rays.
I went to my phone, literally on the beach. My wife was still in the ocean. I said, I've had enough of this. I'm ready to get back to Phoenix. And I grabbed my phone and I went to shadyrays.com and I used the same boat. I don't have some specialty code, some gatekeeper code, shield code. I got a code like everybody else, the best code, PHNX, 35% off. These cost, I think, out the door, under $40. These are way better than any other name brand that are going to cost you double, sometimes triple, and they look better. I run in these. I wear them all over the valley. It's 115 degrees outside. There is no chance in hell I'm going anywhere without these. None.
I run in mine. Did you know that I have my Shady Rays? I run in them all the time. They're like the kind of big golf style glasses, and it's solid for that Arizona sun. But Shady Rays is rated over 5 stars. 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That's not, you don't just get that on a whim. That's earned. And they have the stylish sunglasses that you find at the top designers, but they also have that warranty that you can't beat anywhere. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal this season. head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Illadre's back with another super chat, 199. I say Garrett Williams is a leader. I think so. I think it fits his pedigree. They draft the same player every year, seemingly every round. Was he a captain? What do his teammates say about him? Gannon says it all the time. Do they love ball? Like, you're only going to get a Marv and a Paris and a Darius with certain levels of football ability in early rounds. You might get an outlier here and there like Michael Wilson because he was hurt. But even if they do not have the physical or athletic pedigree, you know the type of person, the study habits that they're going to have, the commitment level, and it bleeds everywhere else. So, yeah, I think Garrett Williams is somebody that doesn't tear his ACL. He's a first or second round pick. And the Cardinals hopefully are going to reap the benefits of that, Damon.
Yeah, I think he absolutely would have been a second round pick if he didn't tear his ACL. So I think the Cardinals saw value there, and they a long athletic corner like that, played at a pretty high level. He is an ACC defender though, Johnny.
We'll look past that on this circumstance. And you know what? I've seen enough already. You pick off Geno Smith in your first game as an NFL player, you're good enough for me. Hit that like button, everybody in the chat. We're fired up here on a football Wednesday in less than a week's time. We're going to be out in Glendale, wall-to-wall training camp coverage that you can't find anywhere else. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not a diehard at GoPHNX.com and you're not in that Discord, you're going to miss out on all the camp insight, goodies, and more. Craig and Bo are going to be out there, boots on the ground every single day. I'm going to be out there when I can. Same with Damon. We want to see you at training camp in the Discord, rocking the number 18 collection. Hey, we've been laying low in the offseason as much as we can. Now it's time to emerge. PHNX Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals, we are less than a week away from kicking it into high gear for the 2024 regular season, Damon.
It's like Christmas morning. Like you got to wake your parents up. That's what you're going to do with your kids, Johnny. You're going to wake them up like they wake you up on Christmas and be like, "Hey, son, it's Cardinals football time. Get up."
That's right.
And I mean, we're pumped because this is like a season that like really could go in a lot of different directions. And for the first time in a while, like I feel like, we feel like the talent on this team and like the young core of this team has a lot that to prove and a lot that they can, put out on the NFL field this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see. I'm really excited for it.
We're fired up. Like this video, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. I got Bo Biden in the chat asking all the Star Wars acolyte questions. I promised Bo I wouldn't get too much off the beaten path. Bo Biden, send me a DM. Let's talk about it. In the meantime, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. Subscribe to PHNX Cardinals wherever you get your podcast. Big thanks to Damon, Dawg, pulling double duty today. We're back on a football Thursday. In the meantime, for Damon, Dawg, I'm Johnny Venerable. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.